What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Not that I ever really had this channel established. I thought it'd be cool to have some fishing videos put on there, and then life happened. So now I'm gonna dive into this thing. Little backstory. It was my great-grandparents. They bought it brand new in 72, so it's a 1972 Chevy Nova. It's an original 350. It's not the SS, but it's an original 350, so it didn't have that 396. I think is what they put in the more family-friendly version. But anyway, so instead of doing fishing videos now, I'm gonna dive into this. I started on this car, I don't know, a year ago. I really dove into it about a year ago. We had moved up here to our new home. By the way, I live down in South Texas area. Really hot. That's why the garage is closed. And this is my workshop. It's just a 2-car garage at my house. Not a lot I can do about the space, but hey, you work with what you got, right? So anyways, it's 72 Nova. I started on it about a year ago. And of course, being the novice I am, I've screwed up a lot of stuff, and I've had to rework a lot of stuff. And with the help of, I'm gonna give a shout out to him right now, Mr. Fireman. I don't know his name. I feel bad for not knowing his name. I'm sure he said it in the video or somebody's said it in the comments. But Mr. Fireman, that dude is awesome. Here, I'll just show you what he helped me with in the beginning. So when I first started this car, when I first started working on this car, I'm like looking at my face, aren't I? No, I'm not. I got the camera turned. Hold on, I gotta pause the video and then come back. All right, rotated the camera so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So anyways, when I first started this car, I ripped off the old roof panel. Shouldn't have done that. I mean, I just dove right into it. I'm like, you know what? I've watched enough videos. I'm a pro at this, right? Absolutely not. Do not watch YouTube videos and then just dive right into it unless you watch all of the proper videos to get this done. So long story short, I ripped off the panel. Of course, I'd already bought the new one, so it showed up. Everything looked good. And then while I'm cutting off the old panel, this section of the car, we'll lift this up a little bit, you can see under there. Well, y'all know what it looks like underneath. Anyways, this section between here and that panel, the skeleton panel was what we're gonna call it. The inner skeleton panel, it collapsed in. It literally shifted maybe 3/8 in both directions, that side in, this side in. As soon as I made the last cut on the old panel, it shifted in. Big mistake, should have never done that. So anyways, I got on YouTube, of course, and was looking up how to properly install a new roof panel, new roof skin, I guess you can call it. And I ran across, Mr. Fireman. It's like Mr. Fireman and then a few numbers. I don't remember it off the top of my head. And of course, I'm recording this, so I can't look it up. But anyways, he was working on some dents on the roof panel that he was replacing, and I think it was on a 67, 68. No, it was a 67 Camaro. And anyways, so I commented on there and said, hey man, I popped this roof panel off and it collapsed in. Do you got any tips, pointers, how to get this thing back on? Anyways, he doesn't know me from Adam, right? I've just watched a bunch of his videos, and he does some real good quality work. And he's working out of what looks like a shop that he's got at his house. Just does some really cool, really good detailed work. And anyways, I wrote on that video that he was working on, and he was the one that told me, look, you got to, either push this in, pry it out, do whatever you got to do. Of course, I just started this project, so I was nervous about it. I didn't want to jack anything up more than I already did. And so, I didn't want to just, throw a strap around it, yank it in or anything, not knowing any different. But anyway, so he was the one that told me, you gotta get that thing lined back up. You gotta, push it, pull it, bend it, yank it. It's just metal, right? Like, it can all be reworked, but you gotta do what you gotta do to get that panel back in. So anyways, long story short, after watching a ton of his videos, I just kind of want to give him a shout out. He has no idea who I am, probably never will, other than, me commenting on his videos, just like all the other people that do it. But a little shout out to him for motivation, I guess, because up until watching stuff like what he does, I was just thinking, no way I can do this. There's no way I'll be able to tackle this car. But, I'm pretty mechanically inclined. But as far as like metal fab work goes, I'd never done it. I never really dove into it. I've welded a few times before in the past, but just on, I built a barbecue pit but it ain't nothing to brag about. I mean, it's just an old air compressor tank, chopped a bunch of holes in it, put a smokestack on it, a smoke box, or a fire box. But that's the closest welding I've ever done. And to be honest with you, I didn't even do all the welding. I did some of the minor welding. I had a buddy that's a welder at where I used to work. He welded the firebox for me. So, I mean, the welds look perfect, and I didn't do it. But long story short, I knew just enough about welding to think that I knew how to tackle this kind of stuff. So anyways, a little shout out to Mr. Fireman. Thanks for the motivation. And yeah, this is kind of where I'm at. So I tore off, of course, I jumped into the roof skin, screwed that up. Didn't really screw it up, but just jumped into it too fast and without bracing anything. So I ended up jamming some 2x4s in between here. I was able to stretch, I know this is kind of backwards, but I stretched it out first, and for some reason, that's what allowed the new roof skin to drop into these drip rails. It dropped into the rail here and on the other side, and then when I pulled the 2x4 out, it actually crimped back in and made this lip slide out, which filled up the channel. So that's what allowed it, let me see if it'll focus in right here. That's what allowed it to sit back in here. And the main problem when this shifted in, there's a little step right here. So this comes down at an angle, it flattens out and then goes down to the bottom flat that's down in the very bottom. Well, this originally was hanging up on this. So I guess because of this curvature context, and when I pulled it out and pushed it in and yanked on it and cranked on it, it finally dropped in. And once I got it in, of course, I have some Cleco cleats, so I drilled some holes, you know, put those Cleco cleats in. At least now I know. I think they're called Cleco cleats. Which sounds weird after you say it a bunch of times. Whatever these things are called. What are they called? Yeah, I don't know. We'll call them Cleco cleats. After I got those Cleco cleats in there, now it's a lot easier to get this thing aligned back up. So I'm rambling on. Well, then I started thinking, well, damn, I knew going into this that the quarters, I didn't know the whole quarter. I knew essentially around the wheel wells, that was all rusted out, so I was going to have to replace that. And I knew the package tray, the filler panel that goes between the trunk lid and the package tray, I guess where the glass sits on. Yeah, that's your filler panel, I think. Anyways, that filler panel had to be replaced. The internal package tray, I think this is actually a package tray, or the package tray panel, that had to be replaced because this is dark. Like I said, the garage is closed because it's so hot outside. I got the AC running in here. But this section, it was gone. Completely rusted out, completely gone. So I knew that was going to have to be replaced. Mind you, I had only tackled or dove in to the roof skin at this point. And I'm like, man, I'm going to have to replace all that. And then after further inspection, I knew the trunk lid was going to have to be replaced. So I was like, golly, I'm going to have to replace all this stuff to get it all lined up, make sure the glass fits, make sure that the roof panel or the roof skin sits down on this lip correctly, to make sure that the glass fits, but to make sure that's in the right location, long story short, I knew all this stuff was going to have to be replaced. So after diving into that, I'm on Steve Nova's side, of course, and I started asking about repairing, you know, where do you go from here? And I explained, you know, I got the roof panel on, or the old roof skin off, the new roof skin lined up, but I knew the quarter panels were going to need work. I knew the package tray. And they were pretty much saying, look, tackle one thing at once, or tackle one panel at a time. I was thinking, okay, so I came back out here in the garage, started messing with this again, and then I realized in this seam, in this joint where all the panels come together, it was gonna be a disaster. Because this roof skin, long story short, sits over everything. It sits over the quarter panel. The skeleton panel that the roof skin welds to folds over the quarter panel. So this folds over this, and then the roof skin fits over all of it. I'm like, well, how am I going to get this out once I weld this back on? So that's kind of impossible. Not impossible, but I'd end up cutting more out of the new quarter panel than I needed to. So I was like, well, you know what? While I'm already here, I'm going to tackle this panel first, because that supports these inner skeleton panels. So if you cut this out, of course, that takes a risk on the inner sail skeleton panel. after the experience with the roof skin panels collapsing in, I didn't want none of that to collapse in. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to replace this first. I'll brace it, support it, get this in, get this package tray panel in. After I get that in, I'll get the seal or the filler panel, the trunk lid filler panel in, and then I'll go from there. Well, I know I'm rambling, but I'm just trying to catch all up on what I went through and where I'm at. So once I dove into all that, the package tray panel, which is this lip, and the filler panel has a lip, and it all sits on top of the quarter panel. So I'm like, well, golly, and mind you, I'd already cutting this out. I'd already cutting the old package tray out and welded it in. So I was fine there. And when I first got into this, the filler panel was so rusted out, I didn't know where it went or how it sat. I had no idea. So once I ordered the new one and got it here, I'd already had the package tray welded in. I just got the filler panel in, set it in here, and I was like, well, great, there's a lip, and all that's going to sit on top of the quarter panel. So I was like, well, before I finalize this, because as you can see, this moves up and down, because I have not welded it to the trunk spring. Let me see if I can get the flashlight on. The trunk hinge spring brace panel, whatever you want to call this. As you can tell, I got weld through primer on it. I got the holes popped in it, but I did not weld that on. I did not weld this on because this up and down movement, that was all going to determine on how the glass sit. So I know I keep rambling, and I'm trying to remember, because this is all, like I said, this has all been over like 9 or 10 months, maybe even longer than that. So anyways, to get caught up, that's where I'm at. I've got the quarter panels just sitting here. I got the new trunk lid. It's okay. Like, it's an aftermarket part. Like, what do you expect? You know, it's not going to be perfect. But I've got this bolted in. Don't judge me. I had to put shims in it. I finagled the heck out of this thing. I mean, you can see the marks where I've had a 2x4 underneath here, and I was pushing down on it, trying to get this lip to come out because this corner set too far down to the new quarter panel. But on the other side, let me walk over here real quick. On this other side, that's the thing about this 2-car garage. That's the only space I have to walk through when I have it closed. But anyways, this is original. So all this location, where all this sits, is original, except for this. Of course, I had to cut this out because this wasn't fitting in. Long story short, it's all still fairly in the original location. Anyway, so when I close the lid, this side set down too far, way too far. I mean, almost touching the drip rail channel. As you can tell, that's all rusted out, so that's going to have to be replaced as well. But that comes on the new panel, on the new quarter panel, so I wasn't too worried about that. And then that side in there was gone. I'll see if I can take a picture and put it in this video, but I have how I repaired that inner panel, inner sail panel over there. I did what I think some pretty cool work coming up and fabbing a new inner skeleton channel, because you can't buy those. They don't make those. If you want to buy that, you have to buy the entire right side inner skeleton quarter, and I think they're like $600, something crazy like that. And that's all I needed. All of that in there is structurally sound. There's minute surface rust, but because it's like I said, it's a 72, so rust eventually crept through and ate that whole rail that that quarter, the drip, I guess the window seal rail, the drip rail, quarter rail, whatever you want to call it, that was gone, completely gone. So I had to fabricate and come up with a way to repair that. But anyways, maybe I can put a picture in there to show how I did that in case anybody's trying to work on that. Because I know there's a website, it's like called Beld and Speed or something like that. They make prefabbed little window channels, but that wasn't going to work on that because the inner structure, you can see where it's all, I ground it down. That whole section in there was gone. Where you can see a little bit of rust, where the rust color starts to run into the ground section, that was completely gone. And Beld and Speed doesn't make inner panels like that. So they only make this outer, I think they only make this outer actual section that the glass sits on. But anyways, long story short, so I had to refab all that. Like I said, I've done a lot of work on this thing before I started all this, or before I started these videos up. I wish I would have started a while back, just so people could see what I had to go through. And then of course I can get, opinions and and get other eyes on this project, and maybe I can get some help, because I do run into issues, and I'll get frustrated, and I won't work on it for like 2 or 3 weeks just because I get frustrated. But then I'll go watch a few videos that other people have made, and that motivates me to get back into it. So I wish I would have started this from the beginning so I could help, you know, if I can. If anybody else needed help with certain things, you know, that'd be cool too. But yeah, but anyway, so I know this is kind of a long intro, just trying to fill y'all in on where I'm at, you know, what I did to get where I'm at, and the little bit of I say little bit because I feel like I just ripped off old panels and slapped on new ones, and they're not even, you know, they're not even done. But I know it's not a project that you're gonna finish in a year. This is this is a big deal. I mean, I'm removing full panels, and it's a full quarter. You know, it's a brand new new trunk lid, brand new package tray, brand new seal, brand new, you know, roof skin. And but that's where I'm at, trying to figure out where to go next, you know. So I guess I'll dive into what exactly I'm doing right now. This is where I'm at, and I just recently posted or wrote a question on Mr. Fire, one of his videos, and he showed me how he repaired, I guess not repaired, but how he replaced that quarter panel on that 67 Camaro he was working on. And I'll tell you what, I've been working on this section. I know the lighting's bad, sorry, but I've been working on this section for, golly, at least a month. Fighting it, pulling it, pushing it, trying to get it bent down. The hardest thing was getting, this, the bottom of this quarter panel, to sit down flat against this the rocker. And I'll tell you what I had to do. Every time I put this quarter panel on, it lined up great except for down here. You know, I think I already showed you the gaps. The gaps with the door closed, they're not horrible. I mean, they could definitely be better, and I'm definitely gonna have to work it. But once again, and I'm gonna keep referencing this guy because he's just got awesome stuff. Mr. Fireman's got a video on there. He's got a video on how he splits these, how he split his quarter panel to get the gaps right. See, these gaps aren't horrible. They're not horrible. Like right in here is probably okay. I made a little shim gauge. I don't know where it's at. I'll go find it in a minute. But this section right here is not bad. It gets a little wide. It gets a little wide up here, so I know I'm gonna have to split this panel. But he's got a really cool video on how to split this, how to take a welding filler rod and fill up that gap, you know, and how to finagle this over to get this gap right. But anyway, so I'm gonna have to do that up here. It looks like it's pretty good through here. And then when I get down to the bottom, let me see if I can turn this light back on. When I get down to the bottom, I don't know if the door almost looks messed up here, but clearly I can't split the door. So I'm gonna have to split this and get this over. I'm not worried about that. I feel confident that I can tackle that. Like I said, I've been working on this for a while, so there's been a lot of welding and stuff that I've already done, and something like this I feel confident in doing, so I'm not worried about that. But my biggest issue was getting this to sit down flat against the rocker, and then getting this, where this panel starts and the rocker meets, that was way up. I mean, it was sticking a 1/4 inch up right here. What I had to do, I put the quarter on, I clamped it all down. I've taken off some clamps here, a few of the clamps, just because I was about to take it back off, but then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start this video. I'm gonna jump into this and try to get this out there. Maybe it'll help somebody, maybe it won't. But I've got a few clamps on there. I would get this on, I would get it clamped in. I got a few Cleco cleats at the top holding it down at the joint. The back's clamped down. And then this would stick up. I would have a major gap right here. And it would go back almost, I don't know, maybe an inch or so from where the rocker panel ends. And everything else looked good. Everything lined up. Everything looked good. The drip rail lined up. The window, the gap between the window was fine. It's just this section was raised way up. And like I said, it's an aftermarket panel, so of course it's going to be messed up. That's just how it goes. You know, that you're not going to find a. Let me turn the light back on. You're not going to find a quarter panel that just slaps on there. It's never going to happen. I don't care what people say. You are not going to find a quarter panel that just slaps on. You're going to have to do some work on it. So what I had to do, I got in between. I don't know if this is going to light up or not, but if you look down in there, let me see if this will. If you look down in there, I've got it's hard to see. You can see those little sheet metal screws, little zip screws. What I had to do was I took a Sharpie, or a white paint marker, and when I had all this clamped up, I've got one of these, where's it at? Oh, I've got it's a clamp, it's like a woodworking clamp, you know, carpenters use. And this section right here, I pulled it together. But if I clamp this tight where it's set down flush against here, this corner would go way in. So what I did was that little clamp, I slowly clamped it until it pulled this in just enough to where this lined up. And once I got this lined up where it needed to be, I got down in here, because if you look on this backside, hold on a second. If you look on this backside, you can get through, you know, I took, of course, everything off the inner panel, so, and of course the car is gutted. But you can go through this little hole, and you can see down in here. See, there's those zip screws. I took a white paint marker while I had it positioned in place where I needed it, and just marked little hole locations where I needed to drill holes. So once I did that, I took the panel back off, drilled, or took my hole punch, little pneumatic hole punch, and I poked holes in that little lip, and then put it back on, clamped it all back up, used that little carpenter clamp to clamp this back down. All it is, I mean, it's essentially a C-clamp, but it's got a handle and a little trigger on it, so when you pull it, it slowly clamps it. I don't know why the hell I can't remember the name of it, and I can't find it. But anyways, I would clamp this back to get this lined up. Once I did that, I took a punch, reached all the way down through that hole again while I was looking through this gap, and I punched directly through the holes with my little center punch to put a hole in the rocker panel. Well, once I did that, I had to take the quarter panel back off. Then I drilled a pilot hole because I knew it was going to be hard to get those little sheet metal screws started. So I drilled a hole in the rocker panel, put the panel back on, and then zipped down those little zip screws, little sheet metal screws. Now I will say, it took me 3 times getting that right, because I guess the first 2 times when I would clamp this down, it would pull it down and in and back. And so when I put those sheet metal screws in, it did the same thing. It pulled it down, but in and then back. I literally had to pull this off, re-weld the holes up, put it back on, punch it again, or take the quarter panel off, weld it up, re-drill it, put the quarter panel back on, zip the screws in, and it pulled it. This time it pulled it back instead of back down and in. So then I took it back off, welded the holes back up, re-punched them, re-drilled them, finally got it on. This was the 3rd, maybe the 4th, but I think it was the 3rd. The 3rd time I finally got that thing on there right. So after I did that, this section, of course, was sticking way up. But, you know, it's just metal, right? So a little hammer here, a little dolly there, a few extra clamps. Got it. I got this little, this contour line lined up with this panel, and threw some zip screws in it, and it's in place. So I like this right here. It's pretty, it feels lined up really well. I'm not gonna lean over now, but I could probably get the camera down there actually. It looks, I mean, you can see there's still a small gap, but I think all of them have that tiny little gap there. And like I said, this is just zip screwed in. So I'm gonna, once I get in there, once I get everything else ready and I'm welding this in, I'll be able to push down in there and get that, or maybe I have to hammer it down. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I guess I'm asking, you know, if anybody sees this, what exactly they did to get that in there. But yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. That's what I'm working on. I know this is kind of an intro video to where I'm at, but I'm gonna keep working on this thing, and hopefully a few people see it. If y'all do, comment on it. Hell, even if, you know, if you're in this stage or you're working on it, comment on it. But I'd love to hear from some people, and I'm going to keep these videos going. I'm going to try to record pretty much everything I do from here on out on this thing, just so I can get y'all's intake and maybe get some ideas. I know a lot of people have done this, and I know there's a lot of good information out there. But yeah, I mean, you know, comment on it, maybe subscribe. You know, I'm not in this to try to get like this awesome YouTube channel going. I'm really in it just so maybe I can get some help and hear some ideas on what people have done. But anyways, I'll start working on this and see what I can come up with, and I'll check back in with y'all later. See ya.